Hey, what's up guys, TechTine here and I'm back again with a brand new video. So before I begin, as always, I want to thank you all so much for watching. If you do enjoy my content, don't be a stranger, make sure you leave a thumbs up and also subscribe to the channel. So with that being said, I've spent more than about a week and a half with this phone as of the time of you guys watching this video, and I have a couple of thoughts. Think of this as kind of the initial review because I cannot really give you a final conclusion on this phone until months have passed on this phone being launched. But overall though, this is definitely a solid device. However, it does raise concerns in a major area that we will be discussing here later on in the video. The first thing that I want to talk about in this kind of review is the design of the phone itself. So this here brings in a kind of a familiar design of their last year's flagship, but a new design in their kind of mid-range. Again, this is definitely Motorola's second attempt at a solid mid-range flip device, and the back material has this kind of soft, almost kind of matte finish texture to it that does feel grippy, and it does provide a more solid grip than the previous material, which was like that vegan leather material that looked nice, but it was not as grippy as this material here. One of the weird choices that they decided to make is in the top part of the back, and this is where you'll see this kind of small soft matte touch material that is right beneath the secondary display. I don't know, it feels off. I wish it was just a full display, but can't complain on kind of a mid-range flip device. I just wanted to share that with you guys. Speaking of which, the back also has this larger display that we will definitely have a conversation about, and you also get kind of a dual camera setup with the LED flash. Again, stay with me, we're definitely going to have a conversation about it. On the bottom of the phone, you know you have a premium device, or somewhat of a premium device if you don't have a headphone jack. So you will get your USB-C that does support 30 watt of fast charging, as well as your bottom facing speaker and two microphones. On the right hand side, you will get your power button and the volume up and down. Now this phone is really thin when it's open, and so these buttons they're clicky, don't get me wrong, and they're tactile, but they're really small and they're really thin, so keep that in mind. It did take me a little bit to get used to. On the front of the phone, you will have the display, and this is a 6.9-inch 2640 by 1080p display, and it does use their foldable LTPO AMOLED technology with 1 billion colors. It does also support 120Hz of refresh rate, HDR10+, as well as a high peak brightness of 3000 nits. So definitely a display that will work really nicely in outdoor conditions, so you shouldn't have a problem with that. It's not quite kind of a 2K display or a stupid crazy resolution. However, the 1080p here works perfectly and it's really good. This phone, expect to have some scratches here in the future because it still has this kind of plastic cover to help it fold. The crease is not as noticeable now that I've been using this phone for a little bit over a week. One of the complaints that I do have about this display is the downgrade that they gave us. And so last year's generation did have a refresh rate of 144 Hz, and you did have the option to pick between the different refresh rates. This time around, unfortunately, one maxes out at 120 Hz, two, the system or the display itself will decide what works best for you. So it's not going to keep it at 120 Hz if you pick the high. It will start at 1 Hz and it will smartly optimize depending on what you're doing. Same with the standard, it maxes out at 60 Hz, but it will decide what would work best for you as far as the refresh rate. I don't like that. I like to pick and choose my own refresh rate and use it as I would want it to, if that makes sense. Yeah, as far as colors and things like that, you can control them here and there in the settings, but watching videos on this phone is really good, and anything that would require you to use this display, as long as the screen is ultimately clean and free of scratches, you will have an enjoyable experience. Even the speaker on here is really loud. It's louder than the previous generation, and it's definitely crisper and clearer, so thumbs up for Motorola for giving us an upgraded speaker. Talk about the 2024 Moto Edge now that I've been using this phone for 2 months. The first thing that changed since this phone has been released is the price, which is a good thing because now this phone starts at $449 unlocked instead of the $599 MSRP that this phone came out with, which is a more competitive price, and That's really, really good considering all the things. So the next thing that I would like to cover is in the kind of specs and the performance aspect. So this phone, this time around, they use a MediaTek Dimensity 7300X based on a 4nm architecture. It is octa-core. You will get the Mali G615 for your GPU, 256GB of standard storage, which is up from the previous 128GB generation, 8GB of RAM, and you do have support for what's called RAM boost, that if you needed more RAM, it will use the storage to help out boost your RAM depending on the task that you're doing. So as far as benchmark scores, it scored respectively a mid-range score. So 1044 for your single core and 3041 for your multi-core score. Mind you, this is not going to be the greatest performing phone, right? Again, this is still in the budget lineup of kind of flip devices. The everyday tasks that you will throw at this phone will work really well, right? So the 120Hz refresh rate, combine that of the speed of the efficiency of the software, as well as the kind of decent mid-range processor, will make for an overall solid experience. So opening up apps, opening up your browser, going through social media, doing the light things will work really, really well on this phone. And shout out to RAM Boost for giving you extra RAM when you need it. Gaming on this phone is also pretty decent for the most part. Heavy demanding games will get this phone to kind of warm up a little bit. And remember, this phone is really, really thin. Okay, so really quickly, I also want to cover up on the camera conversation, even though I'm also working on a full camera review, so stay tuned for that. This will be coming out really soon. But basically, you get a main sensor of 50 megapixel f1.7 aperture, and you will also get a secondary 13 megapixel sensor f2.2 at 120 degree field of view, an ultra wide sensor essentially. You will have the ability to shoot 4K at 30 frames per second or 1080p at 30 or 60 frames per second. It does support gyro electronic image stabilization. The front facing camera is 32 megapixel f2.4, and it also does support 4K video at 30 frames per second. And you can use the secondary display to actually go through your menus of the camera itself, and you can use it to take some really solid selfies that we'll take a look at here later on. As far as the image quality goes, as far as what I've been using it for, it's fine, but the colors do look a little bit washed, so they don't pop, right? But the colors in general do not pop. They're not vibrant, so they're missing that kind of, that kind of punch that will make the pictures better. But overall, a solid upgrade from the previous generation. I will have more on the camera in my full camera review, but really here's what I want to get to as far as the conclusion of this review. Using this phone is really fun and really enjoyable, right? But it does raise a big issue. Everything that I did on this phone worked really well for the most part, like I said. And I did enjoy using this phone, and also Motorola gestures work really well on these devices. So it's just a really solid phone with a major flaw, which is in the durability department, but you can see that in every flip phone or every foldable device that's basically on the market. The introduction of the secondary display is nice, but also introduce another durability factor. And so the famous saying that glass is glass and glass breaks applies a lot in this situation. So if you break that secondary display, well, there goes your phone. And another kind of durability issue that I've been noticing on this specific model is that the hinge is not as solid as I like it to be. So the phone wobbles around a lot, and it's not solidly secure when you open it all the way. So that's something definitely to be concerned about, especially in the kind of longevity of this phone. Is it going to be a problem in the future to which this phone would just kind of slide back and forth and open and closes easily and does not stay open when you fully open the phone? Yeah, I'm not a big fan of this hinge this time around, and it sucks because I really like the overall movement of making a solid budget flip device. Hopefully, I'm going to keep using this phone. Hopefully in the future it doesn't really become anything major, but as of right now it is a slight problem. It's not that big of a deal just yet, and hopefully it never becomes a big deal. With that being said, I want to thank you all so much for watching. Leave your comments below, let me hear your thoughts, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Thank you guys so much for watching.